everybody, Maran here for another My Week With video. So this week I'm driving the 2020 Shelby GT500. This is the Track Pack GT500 to be specific. And man, this thing has been an animal to drive this week, an absolute beast. It is so much fun to drive this thing and live with it for a week. So I already did a full review on the GT500 last fall on the launch event. I took it down a drag strip, I did a burnout in it, I took it around a racetrack, as well as canyon carved in it. I did it all already in the GT500 about a year ago. It was fantastic. Go watch that video if you want to hear all the details on the GT500, its specs, all that kind of stuff. This video is going to focus on what it's like to live with one for a week, because that's the part that I didn't get to do, obviously. And this one was a lot of fun. So I've put over 210 joy-filled miles on this thing already, and it is just a beast in every way possible. I love everything about the GT500, but I think the thing I love the most is that exhaust note. It is just so glorious sounding. It just and it gets so tail happy too. Now, it's more tail happy than I remember. I think part of that is because even though this vehicle only has 3,386 miles on it, the rear tires are almost cording with how low they are. They basically delivered this thing to me with bald tires. Because of that, it is, I think, struggling for traction even a little bit more. But there's two parts to that. First, it makes it more fun in my opinion. I'm having a blast with this thing, wanting to, spin those tires at every chance it gets. Also, with, those low tires, it gives the traction control system a little bit more of a challenge than usual, and it still does a very good job of, even though those tires don't have a lot of meat on them, it's maximizing that grip, and it was still able to give me some really impressive accelerations. It just hauls butt like crazy. I mean, this thing flies. It is so fast, it's so impressive, it's such a blast. But it just has so much grip too. It's like really the best of both worlds, because you get like some of the insanity of the Hellcat. You get the wheel spinning stuff, you get the insane forward thrust. You don't get the supercharger whine you get in the Hellcat, unfortunately, unless the only way you can hear the supercharger is whenever you're in like quiet mode and you're on the gas on the highway. You can start to hear the supercharger then. Otherwise, you don't really hear it. But I mean, this thing is it just devours a back road, and oh, it is just a joy. Oh man, who would have thought that a GT500 would have ever handled this good, even just a few years ago? And man, I love this thing so much. So yes, sorry, I'm like getting sidetracked because I'm just having too much fun driving this thing. We'll go ahead and put it into just the normal mode here, let it chill out a little bit now that we're off the back road. But yeah, so it handles so well, but so you have the fun of the Hellcats with the forward thrust, but then you also have equally good handling and grip like you get with the Camaro ZL1, and so it kind of bridges those two cars in a very refreshing and unique way. And then the fact that you have this dual clutch, which by the way is another one of my favorite things about this GT500. So I think the dual clutch is definitely better than the dual clutch you get in the C8 Corvette. That has an extra gear than this. This is only a 7-speed dual clutch, but this dual clutch is always ready to go. It's always very precise, and even whenever you're in automatic mode, you're just kind of cruising along. It's always smooth. There was never any time I had to wait. In the C8 Corvette, there was one or two times where if I caught it off guard, I could have, waited a little bit longer for a shift than I would have liked. This, no matter, even if I'm not in manual mode, if I'm just driving along and it's in its normal auto mode, and I'm just like, I want to do 2 more downshifts, like it immediately does it. That's not even manual mode, and it's just bam, 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 every single time. This is definitely a superior dual clutch to the C8. It's not even a close comparison in my opinion. I'm going to talk about the C8 a little bit more later on in the video here, but I want to first talk about a few of the other things that I noticed here while I was driving. But that dual clutch is always smooth. It inched up in traffic effortlessly. There was never any really harsh engagement points or anything like that. And this car has probably not lived an easy life in those 3,000 miles. So I'm honestly surprised it's as smooth as it is. But so it's so impressive with the way they did that dual clutch. And obviously I appreciated that on the press launch, but now living with it, I could really see, you know, what is it like when it's cold, when you're doing a cold start and it's starting off in the morning and stuff like that. And it still is always smooth and always ready to go, and I love that about it. Now for two things I didn't love about the GT500 in my week of driving it. The first is there is a very pronounced rattle right behind the glove box area, and I tried looking around the glove box. It's nothing in the glove box. It just makes a rattle there, and I've owned now 4 Mustangs of this generation. None of them have ever had a rattle behind there like this does. I'm not sure why it has that rattle. This is only the 20th production GT500 to come off the line, so maybe that has something to do with it. I'm not sure, but that was just something that got a little bit annoying after a few days. Like, man, like that thing really likes to rattle. Another thing that I'm not in love with is the super stiff ride here of the track pack version. So the track pack, for those that are unfamiliar, it's an $18,500 package that gives you the carbon fiber wheels, the Cup 2 tires, gives you that huge carbon fiber rear spoiler, or rear wing is what it should be called actually, and you know, a few other little bits and pieces. You have the rear seat delete here, that's another track pack thing. You have the adjustable strut top mounts, and so I'm guessing that those things are why this ride is super stiff, because I don't remember the regular GT500 on the press launch being nearly this stiff. And as someone who owns a 2019 Mustang Bullet, obviously that's a lot milder of a setup, but that also has the Magna Ride suspension, and that is a lot softer and a lot more comfortable. And as much as I enjoyed the extra horsepower of the GT500 here in the week, I missed the ride quality of my Bullet. It's a much nicer cruiser on the highway, around town, in every scenario. The Bullet is obviously going to be a nice and soft ride, but it also is not going to be handling nearly as good as this will around a racetrack. So clearly that's the compromise you're making. That's, you know, Captain Obvious for you there. But I just wanted to, you know, point out that it is a stiff ride, and so if you just, you know, think you're just getting extra grip with the tires and stuff, you also do get that stiffer suspension, I think. And so that's something to keep in mind when you're considering whether you want to check that $18,500 option box, which by the way, let's just go ahead and talk about pricing now. This one, as tested, is over $94,000 because it has the racing stripes, and it has, like I said, the carbon fiber track pack and all that kind of stuff. Now it is, you know, very comparable to the ZL1 1LE, and those I think come in a little bit cheaper. It just comes down to, you know, whether you want the dual clutch, because I think this dual clutch is going to run circles around the automatic in the regular you know, Camaro ZL1. And if you want the stick, obviously you're gonna have to go for the Camaro, because Ford for some reason does not offer it here in the GT500, unfortunately. So respect to the Camaro for, you know, offering that. Also the Hellcat, you can get a manual still on that too, so it's only the Shelby that forces you into the automatic. Compared with other things you can buy for under $100,000, this is going to be one of the fastest things out there. And that's another thing. And one other thing I'll mention about this and the C8 Corvette. And the C8 Corvette has a faster 0 to 60 time in this, and everyone looks at the specs and stuff and says, well, the C8 Corvette's going to be faster. But clearly this is much faster than a C8 Corvette. And, you know, if we're talking about vehicles under $100,000, a lot of the C8 Corvettes, yes, you can get them for 60 grand. Most of them are $75,000 to $85,000 as they're spec'd, and they're going to feel a lot slower than this. I mean, it feels fast. The C8 Corvette's impressive. You know, it's like a baby supercar. But this, if you're rolling on the highway and you step on the gas in this versus stepping on the gas in the C8, I mean, it is a night and day difference. This is a way faster car as long as you can get traction. That's really the only thing. The new Corvette, you don't have any traction issues. But personally, if I were going to be spending something around this price range, you know, yes, the C8 Corvette's very impressive, and a lot of people are excited about the idea of having a mid-engine supercar-looking thing. But personally, maybe it's a little bit of my Mustang bias showing through, but I would rather just have a regular GT500. I would not go for this track pack unless you really are going to track your vehicle regularly. Then go for this track pack if you can afford it. But personally, I would just get a base GT500 for, you know, like 76 grand all day long, and have all the power, all the fun. You also have a more luxurious, you know, softer seats instead of these Recaros you get here in the track pack, which are fine. I didn't have any comfort issues with them during the week, but they are more aggressive, and you lose the heating and cooling and the power function. So I would just skip that, you know. Another reason to skip the track pack, you get the heated and cooled seats that are actual leather and much more comfortable in the regular GT500. And so to me, that's what I would rather, you know, go for. But I think I would much rather spend my 76 grand on that than a C8 Corvette, which isn't as loud as this. I think this is way, way louder. I mean, it's much louder than even my Bullitt Mustang in track mode. I mean, this thing is a beast with the exhaust. I mean, you have monstrous power, tons of grip, and yes, it's more of a muscle car vibe than the supercar vibe you get in the C8. So that comes down to personal preference once again, but I think, you know, if you're someone who cares about straight line speed, performance, and I'm assuming you are if you're watching this video, I would rather have this over the C8. Now, there are a few downsides to having this much power. One of them just actually popped up here on the dashboard is a low fuel warning. That is one of the other downsides of the GT500. So this vehicle was delivered to me with a full tank of gas, and it was showing me about 211 miles of range, which I think, you know, is way less. In my Bullitt, it's showing me almost 400 miles of range usually on a full tank. So this thing is thirsty. I actually had to fill it up to continue filming and doing my review here for the week because it ran out of gas so quickly. And it doesn't lie either as far as the trip computer here, because over my now 217 miles of driving, I got 15.6 mpg, which, you know, is low, but honestly it's just the fact that this gas tank isn't very big, unfortunately, because 15.6 for this much power isn't bad. I mean, if you watch my reviews on the Genesis G70, the Cadillac CT5V, those vehicles were getting 16 miles to the gallon, and I was not taking it easy in this car, and I'm still getting almost the same fuel economy as the Genesis G70. It just blows my mind. So I think the fuel economy, for how much this actually does, horsepower-wise, I think the fuel economy is very good. Just an unexpected perk. I mean, 15 mpg is nothing to brag about, but in a vehicle with 760 horsepower, I'm impressed with that. It's just not great because you have a small gas tank, and it just drains that tank super fast. If you are considering buying a GT500, though, another thing to mention is you might be wondering about the technology package. So that gives you memory seats and the Bang & Olufsen stereo and stuff. And I did do the technology package in my Bullitt Mustang because I wanted the memory seats. I like having that. I also, you know, do a lot of road trips and cruise and listen to music a lot, so I wanted to have the B&O Play system. But this car does not have that technology package, so I was very curious to try out a base Mustang stereo for a week and see how that is. And honestly, it's not bad. It's not really a huge difference from the B&O Play system, honestly. And so if you want the memory seats and everything like that, then okay, go and pay the extra money for the technology package. It also does give you blind spot monitoring, which I also enjoy in my Bullitt, but this has those little blind spot mirrors built in, and I haven't had any issues with blind spots here in my week of driving. But if you like all that stuff, you know, it's probably worth spending that $3,000, but I definitely would not recommend spending $3,000 extra just to get the better stereo, because I don't think that it's anything remotely close to $3,000 better than the base stereo you get here in a regular Mustang. But yeah, overall, I could get used to the GT500. And some of you who know, about my Bullitt and stuff, know that I really love that Bullitt, and I have a loyalty to the movie and Steve McQueen and all that kind of stuff. So I have a little bit of a bias as to why I love the Bullitt as much as I do. And if you don't have any emotional tie to the Bullitt and stuff like that, if I didn't have that tie, I would probably be trying to find a way to get one of these, because I really do love it. Again, I would definitely just go for a base model GT500 myself. It just always put a smile on my face, just from the absurdity of how loud the exhaust is, the snappiness of the dual clutch transmission, just how savage of a beast this thing is. It is just hilarious fun, and you can't drive this car and not have a good time. There's just no way you can do it, because even if you're driving like a grandma and you're in quiet mode, it still isn't even that quiet. That's the funny thing. Me and my friend, I was giving him a ride in this car yesterday, and he's like, let's just try quiet mode. And if you're like off of the gas on the highway, just coasting, essentially, it's quiet. But if you go more than a quarter throttle, you're going to still open up that exhaust, and it still is loud in quiet mode too. So there's no way to be subtle in the GT500. There's no way to just be bored in the GT500. You just can't do it. It is just fantastic fun. It is just wild in the best way possible. So yeah, anyway, that's enough of me gushing, but yes, this was a phenomenal vehicle to live with for a week. I highly recommend one if you're considering it. And yeah, so anyway, let me know your thoughts on the GT500 in the comments below. Huge thanks to Ford for sending me this GT500 to live with for a week. It's definitely one of the ones that I'll never forget. But anyway, thank you guys very much for watching. I'll see you on the next one. Take care.